So, thank you for coming on, Madeline. Another mental health advocate. Where did you kind of start with your mental health journey, kind of getting into stuff like that? Where did it start? Where are you at now? And what are some of the things that you do in your life to, kind of push mental health advocacy in ways like that?
My mental health journey started like when I started seeing mental health, like anxiety, depression, feelings like that. When that started for me when I was in ninth grade, so I was 14. I think it was like a week shy of my 15th birthday when I had my first panic attack. And like over that time, I felt like I was super young, and so I didn't really understand like what it meant to kind of like go through these things. And I think even when you're not young, that can be like something that people experience just because of the lack of knowledge and education that we have on mental health.
Yeah,
Um,
for
but
sure.
for me, that's when everything kind of like really started, and it kind of like went away after that as I continued to like grow up and mature, which can happen sometimes. But when I was a junior in high school, it was like after COVID. It was, we got out of school in March of 2020, and then in August of 2020, I started seeing those things again. And to make a really long story short, I just had a panic attack one day when I was driving, and that just pushed me back into like everything that I was in before.
Yeah.
Um, I was anxious when I was driving. Like I didn't drive for like 2 years. I literally just
Oh,
started
wow.
driving again in January. So it was it was a lot to kind of like pile on and deal with. And I really was just in a rut for like a long time, and I thought that that was just like doomed for me. Like I was like, well, this is just going to be my life and I'm going to be like this forever. But after doing like a lot of like my own research and like realizing that that wasn't the case, I was like, okay, like I will be able to overcome this and get over this. And honestly, like once I went and got a diagnosis, like it just was really interesting to me to find out like what these things meant and what was going on in my brain and why these things were happening. And so everything kind of just went from there. How old was I? When I was a senior in high school is when I
Okay.
started my mental health Instagram account, and I just started posting, and I didn't really know what I was doing, but I was like,
Yeah.
hey, like I think it'll help someone. So that's pretty much what I did. And then I continued sharing my story like on my personal account with like people that I went to high school with and things like that. So just really being open about it helped me. And I know that doesn't help a lot of people, but I think even those people who don't like have the courage to speak up and be open about what they're going through, I think they can still like use hearing from people who have similar experiences. And that's kind of what I want to be for people. And
Mhm.
now, I mean, obviously, I still live with like challenges of anxiety and depression and all that, but I've learned to kind of handle it better. And now I just get to inspire people while I grow every day. So it's really cool.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I, just to let everyone know when this video is posted too, that's actually how I found your Instagram account and like met you through that. So I just think that was super cool because I've never seen, and I believe when you're going off of what you were in high school and through COVID and stuff, we're kind of the same age. So I'm a sophomore right now. Are you
I'm a junior in college.
junior? Okay,
Hmm.
so kind of the same age, but
Hmm.
you know, I just there's not a lot of that going around like at our age, and like it's very, I don't want to say stigmatized, but it's very, just not looked upon as something that's like, oh, this person is really strong, this person's really confident. Like people who come across like mental health accounts and stuff like that, they might think, oh, this person might have a problem, or oh, this is something that I want to like stay away from. And that's completely the opposite of what it's supposed to be and what it's supposed to translate to. So um yeah, I just think that was really special that you even like, are doing this. And I see your posts, I see your stories, like that's like super awesome. I Every day that's like something I check, and like every part of that is super cool. It's awesome to relate to. Like this can help like so many different people. Like I just was scrolling one day and found this. So that was awesome to me to find this out and connect with you on that level. Um so yeah, I can actually, and again, just trying to split this up into like three different parts, I think. Just getting, your story and then going into mine and then kind of, collaborating on that at the end. That um starting off with my story, this has been something that like I've wanted to do for so long. Just kind of get together with someone that can listen also, and as well give their input, and you know just being a mental health advocate, I think it's great to connect in that way, and hopefully help other people out there that have either struggled with mental health, or if not, you know at least apply some of the same things that I've learned and you learned, and if you've learned, and apply that in their life. So um I'll start off kind of with my story. I first off have started I got into mental health probably 4 years ago, in 2020, around the same time. So that was during COVID. Um, Around my 16th birthday, I want to say, I had really gotten into like hard drugs, stuff like that, weed, alcohol. But I really didn't think anything of it. So it's been it kind of just took over my brain, took over my way of thinking. Like every day became wanting to get more drugs, wanting to escape reality, wanting to forget whatever I felt that day, happy, good, sad, whatever. Like there was always an excuse for it. So to put it briefly here in the start, I've struggled with addiction now for this is going on 4 years of addiction, and have it it took me really the whole 4 years to realize that, wow, this is a problem. I need to put all of my feelings of feeling shame and scared to talk to other people about this aside, and really just change my life around, because it was going in a horrible trajectory. Um, so that's basically where I try to put my mental health advocacy towards, is addiction, helping other people my age, because it's rampant, I feel like, with just ads, like the United States, like where we grow up in, how normal it is among groups of people our age to just have something in their hand at parties, have something in their hand, whatever, like when you if you're feeling bored, if you're trying to celebrate, like there's always something you can relate to, and just, oh yeah, like let's go get wasted somehow. So yeah, I'll start off kind of 4 years ago from where it all started. um so I always grew up pretty anxious, I'd say. I was always the type of kid in like grade school, like middle school, that was always a little bit shyer, always a little bit kept to myself. That's not to say that like I wasn't a great person, and like I wanted to like talk with people, because I did, and I really wanted to, but I always felt, you know, a sense of like, not belonging, or, oh, why am I not part of this friend group? Like, why am I not a part of like, their friend group and what they're doing that night? And that kind of started around like middle school, like sixth grade, I want to say. Um, that I really felt a lot of like social anxiety is basically what I'd call it. So, um, and of course, like then you just don't think anything of it. Like I was not like, oh my gosh, like stop for a second, like this is anxiety. Like it was not like that at all. So, unfortunately, but it just that's not how it works for most everyone. So, um, getting into like middle school, I I was really trying hard to fit in, always be like the talk of the class, or like do something that I can make myself known to others. Um, you know, and I think I found that I think I found like humor and being funny and comedic to an extent. Like I think I found that to be my go-to when it came to like associating myself with others. Every conversation that I'd have like in class would, be revolved around a funny story. Like it would be something along those lines. And like that's how my brain thought like, okay, this is how I'm gonna connect with this person, like right here and now. And yeah, I think as well, really all starting in middle school again, like I said, that's where I found that I would get, very anxious or ashamed that I was left out of, you know, seventh grade hangouts on a weekend. Like I was so upset like that I wasn't a part of that for some reason. And I just felt like that's where the whole like racing mind started. Like, do these people not like me? How is this going to be on Monday when I go to school? Like, do these friends not want to talk to me anymore? Like what is the deal? Like, why don't they like me? Like, people pleasing was at its highest, at a very young age for me. Um, and I can't really say that that was like, a lot of people can start off very, very young and kind of go off their family and their parents and like maybe pressure that they had from their own family. And honestly, I really didn't have that much pressure. My mom and dad are the most beautiful couple ever. They're great. I love them to death. And um, they weren't really like you need to be this way of Jamie or else you're not going to succeed in life. And they weren't really like that. They saw me as a good caring kid, happy, joyous, like, loves to play baseball, like all that stuff. And so that really wasn't an issue. This really all just came down to people pleasing, wanting everything to be the way that I think it should be, and making sure that everyone had a like, good opinion of me, like all the time. So, um, really, when my mental health started to go kind of awry was in eighth grade of middle school. Um, had gotten into a relationship, um, kind of like my first, go around with girls at this point, just being what, 13 or 14. And we were very close at this age, and she obviously doesn't mind me talking about this. She's another great mental health advocate in her own sense, but we had a very close relationship, me and this girl, and it went on for quite a long time. I mean, a long time for what you'd think an eighth grade relationship would be. So um, things were getting, I think, a little bit too early for us, and things were getting too, you know, deep. It just wasn't ready at this age and at that age, and um, it kind of drifted down a little bit, and then we broke up this summer going into my freshman year. So um, that shot me. I like in the heart. It was just like, oh my gosh, like I'm screwed now for the rest of my life. Like there's never gonna be another like experience like this. Like everything was just like depressing, and but I didn't know what depression was at this point. I didn't know, where this sadness inside me was coming from. And I think that's where my depression really kicked in middle school. Now it wasn't just that one thing. Like this has been built up anxiety just from childhood, from either one or two family trauma events, but whatever it was leading up, like it was all just wrapped up in one. And it came to fruition like in 8th grade. It just happened to be. So I would just be staying up for nights and nights, like without sleeping, like just crying my eyes out to like music, to things like that. And like I had never like cried in my life like that. And you know, never thought, and I always did it, alone in my basement, just with ear pods in, like never telling my parents, like, why are you so tired this morning? Like you didn't sleep, and just stuff like that. So that was my first kind of bout of depression and where I was at in my life. Like that was just like a very, I don't want to say traumatic, but it was a very important part of my mental health at that point. So um kind of the next part that I'm getting into is, that was the summer going into high school. Um, and then that summer, that was 2019, I think it was. And I really had a tough time, um, you know, with external pressure from parents and actually even coaches and friends at this point, because I had to decide between two local high schools that I was going to go to. One of them was, the school called Walled Lake Northern, and then another one was called Orchard Lake St. Mary's. And I got out of 8th grade and made kind of a new friend group. Um, guys that were really open, guys that were really cool, talkative, they were genuine, they were, all the things that you'd want to have in terms of qualities in a friend. And so that's who I wanted to like be around. And they had already known each other. They had already gone to middle school, even like grade school together, grown up. So it was kind of another thing of oh my gosh, like I have to now try to join this friend group. Like just as you struggled in grade school, middle school, like you have to do this yet again. So I just went in there thinking, okay, I need to, they were all going to one high school called Orchard Lake, and the rest kind of were not. And I'd have to make a whole different experience out of going to the school that I knew no one. So it it was really just, it came down to which people I had good camaraderie with and people that I wanted to be around. So that was just like 2 months of going back and forth, oh, should I go to Northern, should I go to Orchard Lake, which one? And eventually it just came down to wanting to be with those guys that I met right after middle school. So I ended up choosing that school called Orchard Lake. And they ended up also as well having a very good baseball team. um and that was something that I was also looking for, was, I don't mean to be like, sounding arrogant or anything, but I was a little bit more on top of my class in terms of like baseball and like performance. So um kind of my goal was starting to form when I got into like freshman year of, okay, I want to play at the next level. Like no matter what happens through high school, like I just want to make sure I can play college baseball. And that was kind of my mindset going into freshman year. So um I going into freshman year, I was super nervous, anxious to meet these guys that I had been talking to over the summer just by phone. And I still remember like the first time that we spoke and we met. We were at this football practice, and man, it took me a while to like warm up to them. It took me a while because I just had thought about all the past stuff, like how people thought of me in middle school. Like, should I apply the same type of character to them and like see if they like me? Like, how are these people going to open up to me? How are they going to, respect me? And it took me a while for sure. I think they can vouch for that as well. Like it was still, it was a very anxious time, and they could tell that for sure. So, um, anyways, freshman year was it was great. I made a lot of friends. You know, had a very, very good friend group, bunch of guys that like to this day I just love to death, you know, and they are, you know, were the first kind of contact I had with high school and meeting new people, and they made it very easy for me for that process. And yeah, just a great group of guys, great families, and it felt awesome to be a part of that. So um, that fall of 2019, my freshman year, we all played football together, like all of us, everyone in the friend group, and that went great. It was awesome. And in the spring of, yeah, 2020 is when, you know, everything happened. So COVID hit, and you know, I didn't get to play baseball that year. You know, there was no season, and so, you know, obviously that sucked. But honestly, like for me, like COVID was like awesome. I don't know about you, but I just feel like it was, you know, because I was just at we were at home, and then, you know, I guess I don't know whether it was good or bad, probably not good, but my family would definitely push the limits on, like, you know, where I would go, and, you know, how I would do it, you know, stuff like that. So we always found a way until, like, you know, meet up with each other. If it wasn't that, then, you know, we were always on, you know, video games like Xbox, doing something, you know, to stay in contact. And so it was just, you know, it was a good time. And so in 2020 of spring, um, you know, I had, you know, I think I had at that point gotten over, you know, fully the kind of past relationship that I had with this girl in eighth grade. And you know, had kind of gone into the whole thing with relationships and girls kind of with a precaution over my head. Like, I don't want that thing to happen again, but I don't want to shy away from, you know, experiencing a normal high school life in that sense. So um there were, you know, many times looking back at it now when I'm 20 years old, it's just funny to me, like recalling this stuff. Like I was definitely a guy, you know, when I was 15 and 16, that was just, you know, very couldn't really make up his mind about dating one girl. Like, you know, we had friends of friends. We had friends of friends. Like, our high schools were kind of like intertwined with like all their local high schools. So we all had like friends of friends and contacts that way. So it was kind of just like, you know, don't really commit to one thing, and don't get in a relationship. Like, let's just focus on, like, you know, friends, and like if you have a good time on the weekend, like that's awesome, but like, you know, don't make anything more of it. So that's kind of like how my freshman year and sophomore year, um early sophomore year went. um so getting out of freshman year, um so this would be now like the summer of 2020. I actually had reconnected with this girl who I went to school with, through grade school and middle school. So we had been in contact. We had been pretty close friends. I'd say all through, you know, grade school. I even think it went back as far as like kindergarten. So um, I'd always been friends with this girl. Super sweet, you know, super awesome, great family. You know, was just a super genuine person. And um, I think it was just at the time of our lives that, you know, okay, we could probably consider, you know, dating, like starting something here. Like, I'm older than I was at 13 and 14 years old in eighth grade, have a better outlook on life, like a better way of looking at girls, and not just, you know, how a young guy looks at them. So um I just felt more mature at that point, and you know, it's still kind of funny to think about it that I thought I was mature at that age, but anyways, so we had reconnected through COVID, um, and saw each other a couple times, and eventually got to the point where we started dating. So when we started dating, like it was awesome. Obviously it's that whole like first love type deal, which everyone can just seems like everyone that I talk to about that can relate to that feeling you have your first like girlfriend, your first like encounter with like intimate feelings. Like it's just like a super powerful thing, and that was definitely my experience of it. And so yeah, I felt like when we started dating in the summer of 2020, like I just felt like I was the coolest kid ever. I mean, I had like an awesome friend group, went to a snooty private Catholic school, and was playing baseball, for one of the best like high school teams you could play on in my state. So I just felt like super on top of everything, like super happy, like super just joyous and just myself. Like my depression and anxiety that I experienced through middle school and getting into like the early parts of high school, I mean, there is just, you know, I don't really know what the feeling was, but it was a great feeling like, oh my gosh, like I'm the man right now, and like just a super like high school boy type thing. So anyways, going into 2021 of spring was when I had a very, very good baseball season that year. So much so that like I was 16 at the time, so I was getting looked at by various colleges, to try and play baseball at the next level. Um, was getting heavily recruited a lot more, and was really on a uprise in terms of baseball. So um, I think after just that whole process was going on, that was when a lot of things just started to go to my head. So spring of 2021 was where I kind of hit like my peak happiness, like I want to say. I had a really good baseball season, was getting a lot of looks from colleges, and of course, like when that happens, like your ego just like I thought I had like a pretty high ego, at coming into high school, but then like when you actually start to get the things that you're working for, like it just skyrockets. Um, and yeah, so at this point, like I just went into the summer, hoping to like, for baseball, you have to verbally commit to a school, and once they offer you. So I was hoping I could get that process done that year of 2021 as just a sophomore, and which was pretty normal for the high school that I went to. A lot of guys who were freshmen, sophomore, at super young ages were getting looked at, were getting scholarships. So it was just kind of the environment I went to school around, and that became my ultimate goal. So I knew I had it in me, and then that summer um, was when things went up and then immediately started to go down. So I'll get into that. I went on a very good run during the summer of tournaments. You have a high school team, and then in the summer you have like another travel team that you play on for most of the summer. So this was going into my last tournament of the summer of 2021. Um, a week before, I saw that we were going to be in South Carolina, and like I had never been, and I thought this was going to be super cool. So my family and I made like a vacation stay out of it. So instead of just like the 3 day being there for baseball, that's usually how long they are. We extended it to like a week, and we're gonna stay at this sweet hotel like on the ocean and like things like that. So um I also decided I was gonna also bring a friend, and you know we were and we laugh about this now, me and this friend who I'm still friends with to this day, that um a lot of the things that we did as 16-year-old kids like was downright crazy now that I look back at it. And you know I just knew going into this vacation that it was going to be something wild was going to happen. So mind you, going into this vacation, I just feel on top of the world. I feel like the man at high school, because I'm getting all these looks from colleges. Like everyone thinks I'm cool. Like I have an awesome girlfriend and relationship. Like it was just an awesome time, I thought, and my ego was just through the roof. Like this is who I was now. So going on this vacation, um, I got there and really started to see the effects of bad decision making. So I had always been around, whether it be in high school, which it's just it's normal. Like people in high school, whatever high school you go to, no matter if it's a private Catholic school or it's a public school, whatever it is, there's always going to be, whether it was vaping, smoking weed, like that became legal in Michigan, like during COVID. So drinking, like everyone always had some guy in high school that had a way of getting alcohol some way. So that was just like life. It was just normal. But I didn't realize that, like, obviously at this point it took me a while to realize, but I definitely didn't realize that I had way different effects on substances than other people did. And I like to leave out, the word normal people when, I talk about this, because I don't ever look at the substances as being a normal thing. I think it's mood altering. It's something that, no matter if people like it or not, want to hear it, it's, a brief escape from, whatever they're thinking about. And for me, it took me a while to realize, but I got into the throes of that immediately. So I had always had friends that, were, vaping on the side. We party on the weekend. I drink a little bit, but not like anything too crazy, in a sense. And at that point, I had never thought like, oh my gosh, like after a party on a weekend, like I need to like keep doing this, or like I need to like keep drinking to like feel that way all the time. Like I wasn't at that point yet. Um, but it was just a matter of time. So that really all came to life in South Carolina. I I had grown up, very close with God. Kind of drifted away from it in high school, which is crazy that, it was a Catholic high school, and, why would you drift away from it? But just baseball, it was like baseball, girls, and friends, parties. And that was my four things. So I really didn't have time for God, it seemed like at that point. But I grew up in a Catholic family. My mom was devout, and my grandma is probably who I got it from the most. Very, very devout, religious person, and that's just how I grew up. So I was raised kind of in the sense that like I need to have morals and values and I need to act a certain type of way, like according to my faith and what I believe in. And like applying that to high school life, I never thought once in my life I would be a guy that went out and cheated on a girl or, you know, had bad relationships with friends and falling outs. Like I just thought I was always going to be this way, like for the rest of my life, like super faith driven, like super aware of my surroundings, like caring of the people that I have in my life at that point, like thankful to God that I have them. And in South Carolina, I don't know what it was, but like I said, I think a lot of this goes back to the ego high I had, the adrenaline that came with keeping up this social image on Instagram, on Snapchat, on in the baseball community. Like I just had to keep up with that. Like I had to be that version of Jamie all the time. So in South Carolina, we had met these people on the beach and they ended up having like their own, paraphernalia, like weed and alcohol. And we invited them over that night. And I had that's when I really began like starting to smoke weed. Um, it just like it relaxed me. It made me feel calm that first time I ever did it. And yeah, it was just kind of like a normal thing. But again, just took a hit, gave it right back to the kid. Like I wasn't at the point yet of wow, like maybe when I get back from vacation, like I need to go buy that, or like I need to like make sure I have this all the time. So I just was enjoying the feeling at this point. And then we just I mean we did that every night. Like this kid would come over, give me his weed, I'd smoke it. This would be every night. So then I I don't really know what kind of led to this, but um we met some girls now on the beach. Again, I am still in a like loving, caring relationship up until this point with this girl. And um we met some girls on the beach, and long story short, like we invited them back to our room and things just got really out of hand very quickly. So I had cheated on her that night for the first time in South Carolina, and I really didn't feel any emotion because I was just on so much weed, so much alcohol that night. Like I didn't even think twice about like what I did that next morning. So it was just a surreal experience that first time. Like I just felt kind of like less of a man and like just like oh my gosh, why would you ever do this? But at the same time, like I just thought, okay, this is normal. Like this is normal for people like me. Like it's just their way of thinking at that age. And so I obviously kept that a secret from her. I, you know, the buddy that I was with, um, you know, kept his end of the secret, like, stuff like that. And anyways, switching over to baseball now, this is where I got looked at from this college in Illinois to go there full ride. All education, all athletics, everything paid for, um, and got a scholarship from them after they saw me play in South Carolina. So they gave me about a week to decide, and this is no this is no shot at college sports and college athletics, but just the way that they force kids at young ages to quickly mature as quick as they can, I just don't like. It's very inappropriate at that age to like I was 16. They gave me a week to decide where I was going in 3 years. Like the biggest decision I made up until that point is like how I'm gonna get food after school. Like it was not like I did not think this was gonna happen. So, anyways, my ego just jumped through the roof again, if it ever could. And um, I decided to go with it and say yes to this school in Illinois. So I still remember this day, um, like the back of my hand. I still can think of it this day. The day I committed, I just I had called a buddy, hey, like I want you to make a cool Instagram edit for me, like so I can upload this, let everyone know that I was this big Division 1 baseball player. And the second I uploaded that to Instagram, I was just checking to see the likes, comments, who was paying attention to me, who was giving me attention, like all this stuff. Just I was not thinking about baseball anymore. I was just thinking, oh my God, I'm famous and this is awesome. So at that point, it just went downhill. After I committed to that school, after feeling the intense feelings I did in South Carolina, I had decided one day after spending my night at a friend's house that I was going to go out and buy my own weed. So this was like 2 weeks after my commitment. And I went out, got my own weed. And, for any addicts watching, you think the first time you're just going to do it for a night and then throw it away. And that's what I thought. So I got it, started smoking it in my room alone, like with no one else. And that again wasn't a sign to me like that there was something else mentally going on, but I just thought it was normal. So I began smoking in my room like alone. Um, and just I remember the first high, and then every other time smoking after that was just trying to get back to that same high, which can never happen. So this is where my addiction began. I started smoking weed in fall of 2021. Things began to go downhill super quick. Um, I cheated on my girlfriend like 3 or 4 more times, like in the fall. Like I was just a disgusting man, disgusting human being. Like I felt super, just like I lost myself. I lost all my values, my morals, everything I grew up on. I just threw out the window. Um, and I didn't care because I knew that no matter the shame, no matter the guilt I had about whatever action I made that day, I can just go smoke it away. So smoking weed became my crutch. It was my go-to to escape reality. And, you know, nightly use began into daily use, and then it was just all the time smoking weed. I want to say in the winter of 2021 was when the weed started to stop, giving me highs, and I would just have to now turn to something else. So this is where I kind of got into dual diagnosis, you know, I forget the term for it, but I then got addicted to alcohol. So every night I would always find a way, find a guy who could, have contacts or, to get me a this is normal. Like addicts at this, they just think everything normal and this is fine. Whatever you do to try and go get that same feeling is completely normal and no one else would do different. And that's not obviously not the case. So I would just be getting drunk and high in my room alone, not letting friends know, like not letting family know, obviously, and just like deteriorating like from the inside out. So 2021 was just a very up and down year, and then 2022 was just um, really getting to the peak of my addictive behaviors and where things were really starting to go downhill. So in the winter of 2022, um, I started to like casually drink and drive like all the time. Like I was out late at night, just drunk behind a wheel, like driving to my friend's house, picking them up. Like we would get back at like 4 a.m. and I would just wake up not knowing what happened, where I went, why my car was parked outside in the grass, like why this shit was like happening. So in order to get rid of that memory of the last night, what do? You go and get high and drunk again to forget it. It's a vicious cycle, and it's a horrible, horrible, horrible thing that I would never wish on anybody. So that was like risky behavior. And, a couple times my parents had asked, if I was drinking and driving, and just completely made up the most insane lies about why I had alcohol in my breath, like why I was slurring when I talked, like all these incredible lies that I could figure out. Anything like about you have a problem, you need to get help, was just, that was not, that flew in one ear and out the other. Like it was not an option for me at that point. So getting into the, so I was a daily user, drugs and alcohol, a bottle of liquor a night. Um, in 2022, I began to realize like I was so out of shape physically and mentally ill. Just I was pale. I was like at 176 pounds my sophomore year of high school, and at this point now going into my junior year, I was like 149. Like I lost so much weight physically and was just like I just looked sickly. But again, this isn't my problem. This is other people might say I have a problem, but I don't have a problem. Like this is fine. This is normal for me. I'm just feeling good. Like this is how it's going to be. So I lost a lot of weight, and like I was just completely embarrassed to like do anything around friends. Like I stopped talking to the friend group that I met going into high school that made me feel at home, made me feel good about myself, like made me have a group of guys I could go to. I completely neglected them once weed and alcohol came into my life. Like I completely stopped talking with them, stopped seeing them at high school lunches, like passing time, through classes. Like I would just try to put my head down in my phone, and it was just a super nervous kid. And this was all because of these drugs and the side effects that I had, and I was just neglecting them. So, um, eventually, my girlfriend at the time, she found out about all the stuff that I did, and we broke up. And I was just angry about it. I was angry that I had caused the breakup, but wasn't accepting it at this point. And I just can think about it to this day, like how pathetic I was, how I went out in that relationship, you know, preaching that I did nothing wrong. I did not cheat on you. Meanwhile, all of her friends, like everyone knew that like I had done this stuff. I just I was just so caught up in this. You need to be a Division 1 baseball player. You need to act like it in person, and you need to act like it on social media. Like that's what I was obsessed with. That was my version of Jamie. So at that point, just things were off the rails. I mean, 2022 was just daily use. Didn't play baseball that season because I was so like physically ill. Like I was completely out of shape. I could not play any type of um, so then in the fall of 2022, um, I signed up for football somehow, and it was like 150 pounds, completely out of shape, and quit after like 3 weeks of playing. Um, because and I told the coaches that this was just because I'm committed to this baseball school and I want to focus on baseball now. And it was not for that reason. It was just to have more time throughout the day to try and get more drugs to make me feel okay. So once I quit football, going up until New Year's of 2022 into 2023, I guess it was kind of like the normal thing everyone has when a new year hits, like, oh yeah, new year, new me. And I decided, okay, maybe I should try and like put this stuff down for a while. Like not totally quit, not totally admit I have a problem, but like put this stuff down for a while. So in 2023 is when I first had contact with therapists, psychiatrists, like any sort of doctor related to mental health. Like this is my first contact with them. And I began just really not honest with any therapist. I was just like, yeah, I have all these problems at school, at home with friends and girls, but I don't know what it is. Like it just baffles me. I have no idea what's causing this. And they asked if you'd use, and I'm like, no, no, I don't use. And it's like, well, that was the problem all along. So 2023, um, and just so I can be as thorough and as relatable as I can to people who may struggle with this here online, that like I'm going to tell you like really the darkest times and the deepest parts of what happened here. So in the spring of 2023, about a month before it was time for me to graduate from high school, um, one night, after getting high and drunk, just like I do every night, um, I had got, a hold of like some sleeping pills that were old. They were from like my first psychiatrist I ever saw. So they were just like laying around somewhere. And I ended up taking like 7 or 8 of them, not unknowingly. And I actually overdosed that night. So I overdosed and woke up in a hospital. And, thank God to this day that I'm even still around. My parents were there to like get me there, get me to paramedics that could revive me. Like it was scary. Like I just never thought like, man, my life went from the talk of the school of this big baseball player, great life, to now I'm just a drug fiend who can't get what he wants whenever. So he's angry all the time, ashamed of everything he's doing, worried about what other people think about him. Like it was just a wow moment. So I woke up in a hospital and, did like a little rehabilitation program, like outpatient, they call it. So I was just commuting there, and I really didn't, they were like, do you think you have a problem now, and like, after you OD'd? And I'm like, no, like I can still handle stuff, like maybe I just need to give it like a week of staying away from drugs. So I gave it like a week and then immediately turned back to it, drinking and smoking every single night by myself in my room, for depression, anxiety, like all of it was just through the roof. And I thought this is the way to fix it, but that was actually the cause of it. So, um, 2023, I want to call like my kind of trial and error year. Multiple sobriety stints. I actually was able to graduate from my high school just through like online classes, and very grateful that I was even able to do that, because I was just missing so much classes in school because I was completely embarrassed of the guy I became, and didn't want to be around guys at school, didn't want to be anyone around at baseball. Like they knew me as this totally different guy, and like now look at me. Like I just did not want to show up to school anymore. So I thankfully graduated. And then, you know, obviously I also just threw away the Illinois school, who had given me a full ride. I just told them, I wasn't into baseball anymore, and like thank you for the opportunity, but like let's go different ways here. So, that was another loss. And then I had like 3 or 4 months of sobriety, like all throughout 2023, but still wasn't admitting that like I had a huge problem here. Like I have an very addictive personality that like I need to get fixed now so it doesn't affect me later. And um so long story short, for this last part, 2023 in fall, up until June of this last summer, um was my longest sobriety stint. You know, what they call it in recovery terms is white knuckling it. So I wasn't in any rehab. I really only saw like one therapist, was like a part of a support group, like, but it was through Zoom, like it wasn't really intimate. So I was just kind of going through all the motions, like saying, "Oh yeah, I'm better. Like, I got this. Like, let me just do this at home. Let me rehab at home. Like, let me just do this all by myself." Again, the ego coming in, just thinking that I'm better than everyone else in recovery. And so it was just a long 8 months sober, didn't touch drugs once, but I it was just a matter of time before something was going to happen again and I was going to relapse. So after I relapsed again in June, after another encounter with a relationship, starting to get into, you know, a friendship with a girl, and wasn't completely honest with her about my story, like what I did, how I have addiction problems, like wasn't up and oh honest about that up front. And I let that really take control of me. I relapsed very hard this last time around in June. Went on for like a month of just back to the same old for the past 4 years. Like it was just doing all this stuff was just normal at this point. So um, if I ever felt anxious, if I ever felt sad, if I ever felt happy, like it was a good excuse to go and use out and use. Like if it was sunny outside, if it wasn't sunny, like that's you go use. So this went on for about a month. I actually lost a job that I had, a very well paying job, because I was using at the job, and they found out about that. So things were just going downhill very quickly. And like, this still wasn't enough evidence for me to be like, wow, like you have a problem. Like, I didn't think it was a cycle. I thought it was just, oh, wow, this happens. So maybe the next time I use, like, it'll all be rainbows and butterflies. So I lost my job. And from that point on, after that, I was just like, all right, I need to get help. Like, um, not sure if you're ever familiar with like the 12 steps of recovery, but the first couple of steps revolve around God and just giving it up to your higher power and admitting that you are completely powerless over drugs. And I had finally reached that point, after an overdose, after losing multiple jobs because of my use, falling out with friends, horrible relationship trauma experiences. Like I was finally ready after 4 years of use to get help. So I admitted myself into rehab this past June, stayed there for a little under a month, 23 days. And yeah, I mean, looking back at that now, which is great why I have, someone that I can talk to about mental health, like you, is because like that it was just the best decision I had ever made in my life, like up to that point. Like no baseball, no sports, no social media fame was going to really, I mean, like this was huge. Like I changed my life around after being so scared of like, oh, rehab's not for me, like that's for people who are really bad in addiction. Like, no, like Jamie, that is what you need right now. These people are here to help you, and like you need support around you. No one can get over and manage addiction alone. Like that's just not how it works. So I finally realized that after so many times effing people over, just so many horrible experiences with drugs, I finally got to rehab, um, got so much insight, so much support, began to build a huge support team, like with my family, with friends who I reconnected with from high school, and like just owning up to like this is what I did. These are things that I did that were horrible, but I'm learning from them and I'm growing from it. Instead of just, oh, f what people think. This is not that. Let's go back and use and continue to do this. So after I got out of rehab, um, moved over into my own place and am now just still in early recovery this time around, a little under 2 months, but just a total 360. You want to talk about from the young kid I was at 16 years old, just not thinking before he does anything. And now, to be where I'm at, open about my addiction, open about my recovery, like where I'm at with coaches, with teachers, with friends, like with family members, like it's just a completely different ball game when you have people in your corner in addiction. And it was only a matter of time before I like that finally clicked for me. So um long story. I know you had to sit through that, but um again, just going back to the point, like I hope parts of this story can reach people that that need to hear this. There are so many people that just, and especially with guys, the whole stigma behind, strong silent type character and just having to not, really express your emotions, like that is not how it should be for anyone, regardless of gender. So I hope this can reach people who, number one, struggle with addiction and, might need help, or, think that maybe some parts of the story can resonate with them and would love to reach out, like anything at all. I That's the great thing about recovery and step work, is that you get to now tell your story to others, hopefully be an inspiration to them, and in return, that it just feels so good. Like it feels so good to like let out my story, like let out everything that I did wrong and good and where I'm at now. Like it feels so much better than any drug or any type of substance could give you. So um, I'm doing amazing right now. I'm part of a baseball team after getting another chance to play. Again, got that while being sober. So that was obviously a sign that, hey, being sober brings out the best part of you, not what you were doing in the past. So on a baseball team in my own place, got a great routine going daily. You know, very very intimate with God, and really, really got back to my, faith, and starting getting back into church, getting into Bible studies, getting into these youth groups in my hometown, that are based on God and, speakers. It's just great. It's My life is completely changed from so scared all the time to now I'm just an open, honest, and happy person now. So I thank God every day. I mean, I couldn't do this without him looking over me, throughout the depths of addiction, and really thank God that I'm able to be here in this spot and able to tell my story, to other people. So um, yeah, again, just very thankful that you were able, to do this, to sit here and you know, very, very I just love what you're doing, with your Instagram page, your social media, like what you do in real life, like you're speaking. It's great. Like there needs to be more people at this age, who are as open as you are about mental health. And um I just think it's huge, especially, for people in their 20s are really, not everyone I can tell you right now, not everyone's just like ready and locked in on what they're going to do for their life, and might have a lot of, regrets, a lot of things they're holding down inside. So I just think it's great that, you can go on to social media and do what you're doing. So I thank you a lot for that. It was awesome to kind of get your story, and um, you know, how you support people in mental health. So
Well, thank you for having me. I mean, I really love being able to
yeah,
do this. And before we kind of close out, like there's so many things like going on in my brain that I like feel like I need to say.
Yeah,
Because
yeah, yeah, of
as
course.
you're sitting here
I know
and
it was a
like,
lot.
no, but like as you're sitting here, like when you first started and you're talking and you're just like giving us that like insight of like the things that you went through and like how life was for you, before you really got into like the whole like using drugs and alcohol part, you're talking about I'm in high school, like I'm vulnerable, I'm a kid, like these things are happening and like I'm thinking of myself, and I'm like these are things I've never really thought of before when I look back at like high school and I think about ninth grade and the things that I did and the person that I was, and it's like this just goes to show that like people talking and people telling their story, it really just makes you reflect on yourself and the like places that you've gone and grown as a person. um and I mean, I wish, I actually had someone DMs me the other day on my personal account, and they brought this up and it made me so upset, like I nearly cried.
Yeah,
um They said something about I have no idea who this person is, don't know
yeah,
them. Their name is not familiar to me, and they
yeah.
don't follow anyone that I follow. So I'm just
Mhm.
confused, but I posted something about mental health that I had posted, like I posted it on my mental health page and then I reposted it to my main story. And he said something about like how I treated someone when I was in high school, and I was like, "What are you talking
Yeah,
about?" And they bring that up and I'm like, you know, I have like I've stood in front of high school classrooms in the last year and I've told them I don't ever want to be the person I was in high school again because I am
oh,
so not proud of who that
oh no,
is. And
oh
I
yeah.
know that there are people who went to school with me and they see what I'm doing and they watch what I'm doing and they're like,
Mm.
she's completely fake. She doesn't believe any of
Yeah,
that
oh yeah.
because they still have that vision of me from high school.
Hmm.
And I hate like the people never change because they do. People
Oh, of
grow
course,
and people change. And I
of
just, I couldn't like there are things that I did, there are things that I said to people that haunt me still. Like I think
yeah,
about it, I'm like, "Oh my God, I can't believe
definitely,
I ever said that."
definitely.
Um and that's just one of the things that like I sit back and I think about and I'm like, I'm just we're like when I was 15, I don't I mean, I wouldn't influence anyone to do anything that I did when I was 15.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, for
like you were
sure.
talking about how you were doing things when you were that age and like we were, you were too young, you didn't understand it. And I'm like thinking about like, oh yeah, I probably was a little bit too young to do
Yeah.
some
Oh
of this.
no. It's yeah. I could have a freaking Bible on how all the stuff I did. It was just a mess.
And I
Yeah.
think about the relationship that I had. Like my mom and I are like super close. My dad and I have a great relationship too, but my mom's
Mhm.
just it's just different. Like it's totally different between mom and dad. But like my
Yeah.
mom and I
Yeah.
are super close, like great relationship. And we have been ever since I was probably like my junior year. But I
Mhm.
think back about like my freshman and sophomore year, my mom and I had like no relationship. And it
Mhm.
was because she kept trying to tell me that the things that I was doing and the people I was hanging around were not my crowd. These things are not things that you want to do. This is not how you want to represent yourself. And I couldn't
Right.
wrap my head around that. I was like, no, you're wrong. This is what
Yeah.
I want to do. This is who I am. And at the time, like I really thought that. But looking back, I mean, hindsight's always 2020, but she obviously was right. And I think
Yeah.
about that all the time. I think about the things just completely, and I'm like,
Yeah.
why did we like why was that even
It's
but
it's such a hard thing to wrap your brain around because at that age, people are just very prone to deflect whatever advice they get, like at whatever they think is going good for them, they will just continue to do that thing. Like there's no room for other people's advice, experiences, like
no.
very, very like just teenage stuff, as I want to call it. I mean,
Yeah.
like you said about change, though, that's I hope the point of this, conversation is if you can take one thing away from any of this, it's that beautiful transformation, though, that people can change. Like you cannot just keep living life in your own head, in your own thoughts. Like it's all going to catch up to you. For me, it was young. For other people, it's still going on at very old ages, and that's so sad to see. But like, there is just it's beautiful when you look back and you can think about everything that you did, put that in the category of, okay, wrong ideas, but how do we grow from them and now apply what we learned and use that to grow as people? I that's for me, it connects. It's more emotional for me because of addiction and the relationship I had with drugs and the change that you can see in people when you go to AA groups like I do, or recovery support groups, and see these people who have 30 years, 40 years of sobriety, and how much their life has changed. It's amazing. I just, there's no other way to put it. It's what we were meant, what God put us for on this earth to do. I mean, is to help others, get them to where they need to be, support them, and things are going to go turn out pretty good for you,
That's
if you
right.
can stick to those things.
Well, and that's another thing too, is that, I hope people pick up on is one, at 16, when we're around all these things like you said, and people are vaping and people are smoking and people are drinking and people are doing all of this, it's important, like, you're not going to think about it without someone telling you, because you're in your own brain. But like, it's important, like, listening to us say, like, you are vulnerable. And like, I dated a guy in ninth grade who was a pothead, and I hate saying that, but he was. He would,
Yeah,
there was
no,
never a moment. There
no
was
other way
never
to
a
put it.
moment.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
there was never a moment when he wasn't high, whether he was at
Mhm.
school, whether he was at home, whether he was driving, whether he was working. And that completely just was like gross to me. Like, at the time I was like, dude, like, you can't even come to my house because you're high and you're 14, you know?
Right, right.
And the
Mhm.
second thing is this, a testimony to those who are listening also. Since we left school, since I left high school for COVID, when we like got out of high school during COVID in March of 2020, since then I have lost four friends to drugs, um, to overdoses. Sat through four of my friends' funerals for overdoses. It's just not worth it.
No,
And it's
no,
so
it's
not,
not.
it's not
It's
easy to tell someone that who's currently going through it, but
oh yeah, oh yeah,
someone who is not like ever experienced before, like ever like experienced with those kinds of things before,
right.
even if it's peer pressure, even if, people are like, it doesn't make you cool, it doesn't make you more
Yes,
attractive, it doesn't make you anything. Like, people lose their lives and it's super
yes,
serious. And I wouldn't wish that on anyone. My mom and dad have come and sat through like our friends' funerals. It's really upsetting and it's really sad. And I'm so thankful that you're here today
yeah,
still. I
yeah,
never
yeah,
knew that even, I mean, we've
yeah.
talked a little bit, but I didn't know the depth of everything.
Right, right.
And I mean, it's just a miracle because it doesn't
Yeah,
always work out like that.
it
And
does
I'm just
not.
so
No.
happy. I'm so happy that you've, gotten the help that you need and recovered.
Mhm.
And I hope that it continues to be that way for you.
Yeah,
Really,
thanks.
really do.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. I was planning on doing this for a while, and I just thought, oh well, this is, I could have a friend on here, but I just probably wouldn't be, as, to be honest, as serious or as heartfelt as it is. And I just thought you were like the perfect candidate for it, in the small time that I got to know you. So
Yeah.
um, again, like, huge thanks for sitting through all of it. I know it's
Oh,
definitely long, but I hope this somewhere, for anyone. Like, I just hope at some point this can be inspiration or support, or, you know, cause someone to go out and make that phone call to get help, or cause someone to, take a step in the right direction of, you know, faith-based, good morals, valued actions. Like, I just hope kids our age and adults our age, that they can just really take us a moment to sit down, sit through this, listen to what people have to say who are your age. Like mental health is a real thing and it affects everyone. Some people wear it on their sleeves that like, oh, I have anxiety all the time and like depression, like what was me, or and other people just keep it down inside until one day just comes where, they have to let it out. Like there's so many types of things that you can do, to strengthen your mental health daily. And I just hope that everyone who sees this knows that, and that, like, just getting into a religious based thing, I am Catholic, so this is what I believe in, with God, that like, you are so loved by God that you need to be just grateful and thankful every day that you are alive. You can talk to other people, you have a family, you have friends, you have this, like, this is what I needed to like shift my focus to. And, you know, everyone needs to have some direction of hope, of faith, and whether that's through God, through any religion, like it all ties into one. So it it's easy to see that, when you work on your mental health, you will just have a better life. I mean, simply put, like it might take time. For some people, it might not. But in the end, I mean, being healthy mentally is just as important as being, healthy physically. So,
And I think
um,
Jamie and I both are huge testaments to that.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
definitely.
I mean, yeah, I started my junior year of college like last month, not even a month ago.
Mhm.
And it's the first time I've sat in a classroom, like a school classroom
Yeah. Mhm.
since winter of 2020.
Oh, wow.
Um, I did 2 years of college virtually, and I did my senior year virtually, and I did my second semester of junior year virtually because I felt like I couldn't go to school, because I
Yeah.
was just too anxious to do anything.
Oh, yeah.
And this is what I want everyone to do because I just think it's important.
Yeah.
But to like make goals for yourself because my first assignment in my psychology class, because that's my major, and my first assignment was like we had to do a goals and plans paper. And I showed up to my professor, I was like, if I can come to school, like if I can from now until December, if I can just come to school the majority of the days and sit in the class and just
Yeah.
make it through the class period, I succeeded
For
100%
sure. No,
because that's
it's like it's little, like you don't have to start out with, I talk about the steps, and like you have to at one of the steps in, Alcoholics Anonymous is, you make a moral inventory of, yourself, like what you struggle with, what you don't like. It doesn't need to be that right off the bat. Like you just need to do one thing one day at a time, one little thing. If one day is not enough, or if one day is too long, then just take 1 hour at a time.
that's
Like
right.
I it's great that you share. It's not great, but the anxiety part of it, that like I'm the same way. Like I'm a very prone to anxiety all the time. So it just helps when I can write things down, and even, to add on to that, like things you are grateful for that you did today. Like if you got through that hour without, any anxiety, not thinking about any other things than what you're doing just now, then write that down. Like that's great. Like that, you should be grateful for that.
Hmm.
And I just think we get so caught up with this fast pace, having to do everything at once, people pleasing, how we look on social media, how we look in public, it's just, it gets so out of context when
Right.
talking about mental health, for
Well,
sure.
and it's so easy for me to say now because I'm not in that position anymore.
Yeah.
When I was in high school, like my freshman, sophomore, and what I did of my junior year, I would get up every morning at like 5:45 and I would come like either curl my hair, straighten my hair, do something to my hair, and put on a full face of makeup to go to high school every day.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like you wouldn't catch me dead doing that now. Like
Right, right.
I talk about that all the time. Like I cared so much about what people thought of me. Like I wanted when someone said my name, I wanted them to be like, "Oh, she's pretty," or "Oh, she's
Yeah,
fun," or "Oh, she's cool."
exactly.
And now like
Exactly.
I just don't care. Like, I
Yes,
mean, I
yes,
have people from high school who I've been friends with forever, like friends,
yeah,
acquaintances. And like they unfollow me, they don't even follow me on Instagram anymore because they either don't agree with me politically
yeah,
or they just didn't like me enough,
yeah,
And it's just like fine. Like that doesn't hurt my
yes,
feelings. I'm not losing
exactly.
sleep at night, but it took a long time for me to get here.
Mhm.
I mean now like I go to my college classes and like I roll out of bed. Like sometimes I don't even brush my hair.
Yeah, yeah.
But like that's just how it is, and that's growth and that's
Oh, definitely.
maturity. And when I was going through all that stuff, instead of like using drugs and alcohol, because my like I was that kind of anxious person where like I couldn't have my body feel any different. Like if
Yeah,
I've never been drunk and
yeah.
I've never done like drugs because I'm terrified. Like I'm terrified that I'm terrified of feeling drunk. You know what I mean?
Not
Like
not
losing
clapping. I mean, that's honest. That's that's not a good thing, and it's when you look at it. But good for
but
you that you're staying away from it.
and like there were times where like I was tempted, but I've it's really just my anxiety. If I didn't have anxiety, that wouldn't be a problem.
Exactly.
But instead, like in high school when I was going through stuff, I just turned to attention. Like I wanted
Yeah.
like guys' attention. And not like
Mhm.
in like a sexual way, but like in
Yeah.
a way of like, like I wanted them to text me, I wanted them to flirt with me. And
Oh
now like
yeah.
I don't even like it's just so dumb. I look, I
Yeah.
have friends who are younger and I'm like, "Oh, I wish that like she would see that like someone like a guy telling you this is not a compliment. Like
Yes.
that shouldn't you shouldn't take that as a compliment, like a guy saying something sexual used to be like, "Oh my God, like he said that about me." But now it's like, "Oh, like don't say that to me." And
Right.
so that's also just like growth and maturity and I think that's a big thing too because it's just high school just sucks. Like
Yeah.
there's so many things
Oh
you're
yeah.
figuring out who you are. Everyone else sucks. Like it's just
Yeah. Yeah.
um I mean,
Definitely.
just to put it very bluntly,
Yeah.
it just sucks.
Yeah.
And so, but just as long as, I mean, I tell people all the time, I'm like, just keep pushing, just get through it, just get through it.
Mhm.
Once you get out, you have
Right.
like, it's like a breath of fresh air and you can just find who you are and be who you are without worrying about other people. Um, and that's pretty much what I did. I mean, like, I fell off the face of the earth because I left school and then that was
Yeah.
it. Like, nobody even remembered who I was.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I would go to school for exams because I couldn't take them online and people would be like, "Oh, look who finally decided to come to school." And I'd be like, "If you only knew the half of it, like,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
terrible."
Snarky comments, of course.
Exactly. But
Yeah.
I think you're a great speaker. Like you speak very well. And I think I think there are organizations out there and I can't remember the name of it, but I think like something like I do, it's stage fright is really a thing and I get kind of nervous when I speak in
Yeah. Of
pictures.
course. Of course.
But I know there's some sort of like organization that focuses on like drug and alcohol use because they came and talked to me when I was in high school. And
Mhm.
doing something like that, I think you would be very good at. I mean, obviously you wouldn't have to
Yeah.
tell like everything.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Of course.
but just giving insight and stuff like that, I just think you're a great speaker, or even just being online or whatever it is. I think that you have a lot of talent in that area.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
and you have
I
the potential to help a lot of people.
thank you. That actually means a lot. I getting out of rehab, I kind of decided, kind of the awakening part of my, you know, life-changing moment was, okay, I just need to kind of start fresh with this new mind of thinking like, yes, I have an addiction that I need to manage. So let's take that into account first. Now, what can I do to help other people? And I actually had like I don't even know, like a business major going into college, and like I completely got rid of that, and now I'm in sociology, and like hoping someday, whether it's after baseball, whether it's straight out of college, that I can be, an advocate to larger groups of people, like addiction specialists, whatever. Like I just want to give back from the experiences I had, because there are so many people out there, like I've mentioned, like you've mentioned, that just they've probably gone through the same shit, but just they don't talk about it. That's the one thing. Like it's completely warranted, but like it's just another barrier of like fear. And
Hmm.
like, you have to get over that at some point in your life and be able to be vulnerable with other people. And I just, again, the whole cycle of this, like what we're doing now, the fact that we're able to talk about this, like it's just a beautiful thing. You know, I
Yeah.
never would have thought in 2 years ever that I would be trying to get into a mental health major in college, that I would be talking about all the stupid stuff I did when I was on drugs to other people.
Right.
Never thought in my life.
Mm-mm.
And it just feels empowering. It's
Yeah.
great. So
No, it is, it is. And see, I wanted to be an orthodontist. Pitch that.
yeah.
But no, I mean, and that's just it's so great. Like I'm majoring in sports psychology, which is
Mhm.
why it was also cool to
Oh,
hear your
that's
story.
awesome.
Because I
That's
mean,
awesome.
like people like I don't know, like I just love sports. Football, baseball, basketball, sign me up. Like
Yeah, yeah,
I
of
love
course.
it. Um, but being able to like help players that were going through things like you, like
Yeah.
they're gonna lose their scholarship because they're
Uh-huh.
in this, or
Yeah.
maybe like Cade Klubnik, he
Yeah.
can't get out there and throw the ball because he's too scared. Like, come have
Yeah.
a chat with me. Like, let's sit down, let's talk about this.
Right. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so
Yeah.
it's honestly amazing, like the things that like you go through and like the ways that they take you, the directions they take you, the places they take you. And so I'm super
Yes.
excited for just the future. And I'm happy to be alive because there was a time where I didn't think I would be.
Oh
Um,
yeah, for sure.
I mean, and so
For
it's
sure.
great and God is good forever.
Yes.
Always.
Yes. Always.
Always.
I I would just again want to thank you a lot. It was awesome and grateful that I can share your platform as well. You know, anyone watching out there should definitely, get into this page that she has. It's just great. I mean, you keep up with it pretty much daily, I think. So it's just great insight on mental health, on some of the stuff that she does. And again, very grateful that you were able to do this with me and sit down.
Yeah. No, I had a great time. I love it. I'm just so proud of you.
Thank you. You as well.
Thanks for having me and inviting me. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it was great having you on. I really appreciate it.